While Toyota is still having a very strong emphasis on both gas and hybrid vehicles, their EVs are becoming more and more abundant, and this is one of their latest new examples, the 2026 CHR. And yes, the CHR as we once knew it is gone. It's no longer gas, it's no longer a hybrid. It's a totally new vehicle from the ground up based on the same eTNGA architecture that we see on the things like the Toyota BZ, as well as the BZ Woodlands and the all-new upcoming Highlander EV. But this is the smallest Toyota EV now we're getting in the United States market. It's getting the Tesla charging port as standard, the NACS ports. We're getting a very bold styling design on the exterior, as well as plenty of comfort and unique new features for this all new generation. And of course, we've been living with this vehicle over the course of the week, and it's entering a very hot competitive segment with a lot of great contenders from things like the Equinox EV, the Nissan Leaf, the Bolt is coming back as well, and it's starting at just under $40,000. It's definitely a more enticing option for a lot of you guys looking for a more affordable EV that has a lot of features, a decent amount of range, is a comfortable daily commuter, and also stands out and doesn't look too EV-like and still maybe look like a cool, normal vehicle of daily traffic. The CHR may make some sense to you. And of course, in this video, we're going to take you guys on an in-depth tour of all the features, what there is to like, what there is not to like too much about this all-new CHR, and whether you should consider looking one out of these versus maybe a gas or even hybrid Toyota product. Let's go dive in. So popping open the hood of the 2026 Toyota CHR is, well, not a front trunk. And this is pretty common as the eTNGA architecture typically doesn't have space for a front trunk. That's just how it was designed. Now, this vehicle is built in Japan, so that's maybe a little bit of a more highlight for you if you are looking for more quality. And it's also a lot lighter than a lot of its competitors, which is another good thing. EVs are very heavy. This is still heavy, but is a little bit lighter in weight overall, which is quite nice. Now, this vehicle only comes in the United States in dual motor all-wheel drive only. There is no front wheel drive option, and it's pretty powerful. It makes 338 horsepower, and it's a front wheel drive bias all-wheel drive system. Even though it's two separate motors, the front motors make more power than the rear, but you still get that all-wheel drive traction at all times, which is pretty nice. Now, the battery pack is a little bit on the smaller side, but this is a smaller vehicle overall. It's around a 74 kilowatt hour battery pack. I think it's just around 67 to 69 kilowatt hours is usable to you. The rest is like a battery buffer, which is gonna give you okay range figures. We're gonna see around 285, 287 miles of range on the entry-level model. This one with the XSE and the larger wheels, you're gonna get a little bit less range. We're gonna see around 270. I had this vehicle at 100% state of charge this week, and it was in like 250, 260 miles of range. It really depends on your driving style though. And since this isn't, the most advanced EV on the market, it's meant to be a little bit more affordable. We're not getting the best charging technology, the latest state of the art. It's running on just around a 400 volt system, which means the DC charging capability for going out and plugging it in on a road trip, it's up to around 150 kilowatts under ideal conditions, which means around 10 to 80% in around 30-ish minutes, which is okay. There's a lot of more expensive EVs that can do really, really fast charging here, but they're playing a little bit more safe and the reliable route on this particular one, which they know is going to last a lot longer. Interestingly enough though, you can also buy the Subaru Uncharted, which is the exact same vehicle as this car, and for some reason that can get a front wheel drive model. But it's Subaru, and they're famous for having all-wheel drive models, but the Toyota version, it's really confusing how the two companies, which have collaborated on these vehicles together, have split them up between the brands, but you have a choice. You don't have to go for this Toyota variant. There's the Subaru variant as well, which can be all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, which is cheaper than this one. And one thing that also really stands out with this all-new Toyota CHR is its design. The last generation, gas-only CHR was a very polarizing looking vehicle in maybe not all the best ways, and this one's polarizing that I think in a lot of good ways. I think this looks really great for an all-new EV, especially a new Toyota as well. This is the Tandoori paint finish as well. I believe we have the two-tone style one as well. I think it looks really cool in this red color. Of course, you have a lot of different paint options. Up front here is the very familiar new Toyota front fascia design. So we have this very signature Toyota-esque C-shaped headlight over here, which is your LED light. Down here, we actually have our main projector beams, our LED as well. And since we have the cold weather package, we actually get headlight washers on this particular one as well, which is a cool touch. The bumper trim and the design all I think looks pretty sharp. We have a blacked out Toyota badge and blacked out badging throughout the rest of the vehicle on this XSE trim as well. And it has this sort of crossover coupe style shape to it that I think is actually going to be appealing to a lot of people that like this new shape and maybe can't afford, an X6, an X4 from BMW or a Mercedes, GLC coupe. You have a smaller squished version of it and now in this Toyota CHR. And I think it looks pretty cool of a design. Out back it's this light bar shape, very nice LED design there. It almost looks like a squished down Toyota BZ or, a Subaru Solterra for that example. Joining me over on the wheel and tire front over here, we have the larger 20-inch wheel option that you can get on this XSE trim. I think this is a pretty cool looking design wheel with this multi-spoke finish here, and they have these really thick spokes here, which are supposed to be a little bit more aerodynamically efficient than not. But if you go for the entry-level trim, you'll get a little bit of a smaller wheel and a little bit more range actually, so that may be a thing to consider there as well. We have Yokohama tires on here, totally fine for this vehicle. You don't really need anything out of the ordinary. It's not meant to be a handling vehicle, it's just a comfortable daily electric small SUV in that aspect here. And we're also going to find our large charge port door over here, which is going to hide our Tesla style NACS port. Now out of the rear, you really see the bold design of the all new Toyota CHR. We also are getting a powered tailgate on this particular one, and it's a pretty decent amount of cargo space. We have around 25 cubic feet of cargo space with the second row folded up. Fold that second row down, you're going to get just under 60 cubic feet of cargo space. It's a pretty decent amount of space. Now, this sloping roofline, I guess, could potentially hamper tall objects because the limit is around like right here when it slopes down. But I guess you'll kind of deal with that if you're purchasing this vehicle. Back here, we are also getting though some underfloor storage. So we have two little flaps here that open up to reveal underfloor storage. We have our charge cables located in this particular one right now. This one also has this little Toyota, I believe it's a first aid kit or a accessory cable, but that's nice. We have a little bit more storage. It would be nice to have a front trunk though. We just don't get that here. Since we have the upgraded 9-speaker JBL audio system, we have a additional speaker back here, and we actually are getting back here a power outlet on 120 volt power outlet in the back as well. So you have a nice amount of accessibility there to kind of plug things in. We have this cargo net over here, which can be removed as well. And overall, pretty decent amount of trunk space in this all new Toyota CHR. I would say it's just around the same size as something like a Subaru Crosstrek in that area, or maybe, a Toyota Corolla Cross. And let me know what you guys think of this really sharp new design on the all new CHR, and whether you think it's either too polarizing or just polarizing enough. Okay, folks, we're gonna go hop inside of the rear seats of the Toyota CHR now to check out this space back there. We have power folding mirrors, I believe, on this particular one as well, which is nice. You can see those unfold with the unlock of the key fob there. And since this one is a unique entry-level Toyota, we're getting some funky rear door handles, of course, and they're mounted up in this pillar over here. So you just pull them open. It is a manual door opener, and you can see we have a decent amount of space to get into the rear seats. Not a full 90-degree angle, but it's definitely smaller than what you're going to see in the Toyota BZ or BZ Woodlands for sure in these rear seats over here. So we're going to hop inside. Quick look at the door panels over here. You can see a pretty interesting, unique mix of materials. We have privacy glass in this one as well, on this kind of gray plastic trim up top over here, soft touch gray trim on the centerpiece of the door. We have a little storage cubby over here, window switch, and one large water bottle style holder over there. And check out these seats. This is a really interesting material we'll go have a look at when we go hop inside right now. So getting in the rear seats of the CHR, hopping inside, and we'll close up the door. Okay, sounding thunk there. And you're gonna notice off the bat here, it is not the biggest EV. Again, this is a shorter wheelbase than what you're going to find in the Toyota BZ, and you're gonna notice it back here on these rear seats. Now, above me, we're going to have a grab handle hook over here, and you can see this one's getting the optional panoramic glass roof that does not open, so it's one fixed pane. Thankfully, we do have a sunshade that closes to cover this, though. But I would say these rear seats are pretty snug, I have to say, and it's a very awkward seating position. Let me explain why. So since it's a battery electric vehicle, the batteries are under the floor, which means the floor is a little bit higher, and you can see my legs are kind of really high up where my knee is over there. So that's a little bit funky. I always say manufacturers should make these seats more scalloped so they kind of sit you better, but for whatever reason, they don't always do that. And this is my driving position. I definitely could move my seat up just a little bit more, but you can see my knees are indeed touching these seats. And we have a storage cubby on the back of the front driver's seat, the passenger seat as well. And foot space is okay, but it's definitely on the tighter end back here for sure. Now, the seat material is also pretty interesting. This is a synthetic kind of sort of suede material, and what Toyota calls their Syntex, which is like their vegan leather. I'm not too super sold on this material over here. It feels like it's not going to be the best to clean down the road. It's a very soft cloth-like material. It's a cool design for sure, but I would honestly just prefer if the whole seat was this kind of syntex material actually versus this material. We do have an armrest over here that does fold down to reveal 2 cup holders and a little storage cubby over there. It's a pretty sturdy armrest and it has a nice squishy material on it as well, which is nice. We do get our own light back here, thankfully, which is nice. And we do get some little creature comforts in the center. So we have a heated outboard seat, 3 stages, 2 USB-C ports back here, our own little air vents, and that's about it. Now, if I wanted to fit 3 people back here, yeah, it's kind of cramped actually. So as you can see, I'm really squished in this centerpiece over here. And you can see there isn't that much room on the other sides around me over here. And I'm going to show you guys the headroom situation. So I'm 6 feet tall, for example. I'm sitting in the middle seat and I actually can't sit completely up. My head is completely touching the ceiling over here, or the roof of the vehicle. If I go back into the regular seat over here, you can see the rear of the seat is really arched back, but my head is completely hitting the back of this roof over here, which I actually wasn't really expecting. I didn't have this issue in the BZ or the Solterra, for example, but yeah, this is a little surprising to see. It doesn't look like I can recline the seat up a little bit. Actually, you can. So you can actually recline the seat up just a little bit to this next bar over here, and okay, my head is actually not hitting completely now, just the back of it's still hitting. So headspace back here, if you're over 6 feet tall, may not be the best actually, and that is a little bit of an issue I also am experiencing on the front end of this cabin as well. So let's go hop up there and see what the front end is like in this all-new Toyota CHR. Okay folks, let's go hop up front now in the all-new Toyota CHR. Pretty wide door opening over here, and just like the rear door panels, we have the same treatment over here and the split tone design. Of course, we just got a little bit more controls, obviously, as that's the front door, and we are getting memory seats for the front driver. The driver is also getting power lumbar support as well, which is really nice, and full power adjustments, and we get these CHR branded floor mats over here as well. But let's hop inside. Let's close up the door panel over here and have a look at this very familiar cabin. We'll power it on. So we have a start stop button over here. So we'll press our power switch and it should come to life quickly for us here. Though, as we did experience in some other of these vehicles, these screens do take their time to turn on. So this is a very familiar cabin. If you've seen any of our past few reviews, we had the Toyota Prius. This is pretty much the same style interior, as well as the Subaru Trailseeker, the Subaru Solterra, and pretty much every vehicle that uses this architecture, including some of the hybrid ones and from Toyota, like the Prius, that don't use this exact platform, has a very identical interior here. Subaru does it as a flat bottom style, which I actually prefer because this round style, while I guess more traditional to hold, still blocks a lot of your view from this digital cluster over there, but the flat bottom design kind of fixes that a little bit here. We've seen this button over right, so left hand side is some volume controls, and the right hand side kind of completes that, and the right hand side also has our adaptive cruise, and left hand side has our controls for this digital screen that we've seen many times here. So I have my same complaints that I'll keep saying in every one of the vehicles. I think it's too small. I think the graphics are very clunky and cluttered in there, and I wish they just took up the whole display here. And as I'll keep complaining about it, but I'm sure they're working on a change down the road for an update, but I'm sure this will take up the whole display or kind of be different down the road. But I'm just not the biggest fan of that screen there. The dash design is pretty much almost overall identical to all of the other eTNGA vehicles, save for the materials. This material up here is completely different than the other eTNGA platform vehicles. It's cheaper, I would say, and it has this interesting texture design. We just got out of the Subaru Trailseeker that had a really nice premium feeling soft touch dash. This doesn't feel super nice, I would say, but it has some interesting look to it. We have the JBL speaker system in this particular one, so you see speakers up here. We'll get into that later on in this review. And we have a few physical buttons on the side here, so our headlight washers, automatic high beams. I like these physical buttons here for our trip computer. We've traveled 102.6 miles in this vehicle this week so far. And we have paddle shifters as well for our regenerative braking levels here. No one pedal drive, a very common eTNGA platform thing. It does feel rather small in here. That is one thing I definitely pointed out. And all of this stuff in the center over here is complete copy and paste from the other eTNGA products. So same thing you're going to find in the BZ, the Subaru variants as well. Only the new top-end Highlander EV, the new Subaru Getaway, and the Toyota TZ EVs get a new next generation design, which I would hope that could carry down to these down the road. But we get these dual wireless charging mats over here, which I like that you have that option, but they don't really work too well. They overheat your phone a lot and they're not cooled, and your phone kind of slides around a lot. So I just use this as storage space, though we do have quite a large storage space down here with this felt line panel and a whole bunch of charging solutions down here. And again, like all the other eTNGA products, we don't have a glove box still, which is a little frustrating. So you have to either shove stuff in here or in this center armrest over here, which has the typical Toyota, bifolding design here, but it doesn't lock, so you'd have no lockable interior storage in this vehicle. We do have this little storage tray on the top portion over here, and just like those other products, you can open this up and I guess store your owner's manuals underneath it with some more additional storage. But that's all the storage you're really getting on this interior of this Toyota CHR. I think that definitely could be improved, and we don't get that radiant heating option we get in those other vehicles as well, which kind of takes up that space here. Now the center console is pretty feature packed, I would say. We have two big cup holders over here, which are good enough size. We do have a lot of nice physical buttons here. So for example, we have our parking brake, we have auto brake hold, and our 360 camera system, which we get on this XSE model here. So I press view like all the other eTNGA vehicles. It does the rotating design until you pop it into reverse. So then you'll finally get your cameras here. It does beep when you're in reverse as well. Put it in drive, then you can actually see your camera system when I press view right there. So now we can actually get to see our cameras there. Pretty good camera systems. I really don't have any issues with those actually. So those are pretty nice to use. Shifter over here, so you can see the center. Pretty interesting design overall, but we've seen it in the other products. It works fine. No sport mode in this vehicle. So you either get eco, normal, or sport. Or snow, and traction off, which doesn't always turn off, which is interesting, but that's your only drive mode you're getting in this all-new Toyota CHR. And we have a nice big hazard switch there, and this infotainment system we've seen many times before. It's very common in Lexus style products over here, and as well as other eTNGA platform vehicles. So we have our controls over here for our climate that are always these kind of physical style / digital dials there. We have our climate settings, which will always be in this lower panel here. We're only getting heated seats as well as a heated steering wheel, which is a nice touch actually for an entry-level EV. Some physical buttons here as well as a physical volume knob, and we have our quick access page over here as well, as we've seen in all these other vehicles. Proactive driving assist as well, so really great driver assistance and safety features, even though some cases there are maybe too many, and maybe you may want to kind of adjust that to your own liking there. And I have the same complaints that I've seen on these other software screen systems that are similar into other vehicles, is that there's no home screen. And I guess this is more okay in this more entry-level product, but once you get more expensive, I think they should have a newer system, which they do have. It's in the all-new RAV4. It's in the all-new Lexus product, so I'm sure this will eventually get that. But for a 2026 vehicle, it would have been nice to see that new software in here as well. There's nothing really wrong with this one, but as you can see here, if you don't have the subscription, which you should get when you get the new vehicle, is you need to have a subscription service to use the built-in navigation. Otherwise, you can just use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which is wireless, which is great. We have some cool screens here, like an all-wheel drive screen here. We can check our battery preconditioning, charging schedule, adjust all of our driver assistance functionalities there. But as I've always said, these menu structures are pretty intense, and there's quite a lot of stuff you can change. So definitely sit down, take some time to learn all this stuff. And as I also mentioned, the second you pop it into drive, all this stuff gets locked out. And yeah, you are not supposed to be adjusting things, I guess, on the road as a driver. They don't want you doing that. You have ambient lighting in this particular one as well, so you can change the interior ambient lighting. You can adjust it by zone as well. But I always say, if you're a passenger and you want to make an adjustment for the driver, you can't even do that either because they lock it all out. So I guess that's one thing to consider there as well. But otherwise, it's a pretty fine overall infotainment system. Just nothing too crazy advanced, nothing too terrible though as well either. We don't get the digital rear view camera we've seen on every other eTNGA vehicle. We do have HomeLink in this particular. I believe this is an auto dimming rear mirror over here, but I think it's totally fine. The rear visibility isn't actually too bad out of this sloping rear roof line. Though if you do have 3 people back there, since that really low roof line back there, I definitely could see there being a visibility problem. So maybe take that into consideration. We also do have a button over here to close our glass roof. So thankfully we do actually have a sunshade that can close that. Thankfully, Toyota is still including that. Some manufacturers are not doing that, and it's quite irritating. We have some nice bright interior LED lighting as well. Visors over here, nice, normal, typical design. Let's see if they slide. They don't, but we do get a little extender out here, which does seem to cover almost all of the window, which is a really nice touch there as well. Otherwise, it isn't super outstanding in here. It isn't abysmal either. It's pretty typical, what you can find in a modern Toyota product. Decent amount of storage space, could be better. Space itself is a little little bit on the tight end though. So this seat, I think overall is fine. It could be a little bit longer for some additional leg or thigh support, but again, it's an entry-level vehicle. You can see we have this kind of soft suede-like material on here as well as this interesting pattern design on it. But as you're gonna note in here, it's a little bit short on the headroom side. The seat is sitting quite high. My eye line is right up here. And because it's sitting so high with the seat in the lowest position, I only have about this much headroom left. It's pretty narrow. So again, if you are a taller person in this vehicle, maybe you want to sit a little bit more upright, you have a very short amount of headroom to the actual top of the vehicle. This kind of reminds me about the Toyota Prius as well. That had a really short amount of headroom as well. So definitely take that into consideration. Definitely sit in the vehicle if you're looking at it and you're over 6 feet tall, because you may not fit or maybe a little bit uncomfortable for you in this car. Otherwise, thank you guys for joining us on this interior portion of our review. Let's go take out the all-new CHR on the road. Starting off driving right now, you can see we have a pretty decent amount of visibility all around us as well. We don't have a digital rear view camera though. That's really more exclusive to those more expensive vehicles, a little bit larger. And the suspension is pretty soft. Again, definitely tuned for comfort. It soaks up bumps pretty well. It's generally pretty quiet in this cabin at lower speeds. And you don't get regenerative braking on this architecture at all. So none of the vehicles actually have, one pedal driving. You have regenerative braking paddles here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of regenerative braking, but it will not bring you to a full complete stop like a one pedal drive style experience here. Let's test out our acceleration with our 338 horsepower. Whoa. Yeah, this thing is not slow whatsoever. And how they split up this all-wheel drive system in this particular EV is interesting. So the front motor is actually making more power than the rear motor in this case. So as you just saw right there, we lost a little bit of some traction on the front wheels just because there's so much instant torque going to this powertrain at once. So it's definitely quick, and it's a lot lighter than I would say a lot of some other rivals as well. So you kind of notice that. But all of this, strong power doesn't always make for necessarily a fun, engaging driving experience. This is, again, meant for a more dailyable commuting experience in this all-new Toyota CHR. It handles bumps well, decent visibility around you. You have your storage, you have a decent amount of commutable range, and the 270, 280 mile figures there, depending on your wheel size and, of course, driving experience. But in the handling department, it kind of feels like every other Toyota, and not in a bad way. It just doesn't handle very well. So for example, coming to this corner here, lots of body roll and lean. You can definitely notice that there. I would say that all new Nissan Leaf had a little bit more of a composed handling experience than this CHR. But you still have that really strong instant power coming out of every kind of turning and corner situation there, which is really great, especially in traffic. You do have an eco mode, which really kind of just lightens up the throttle tuning there of the accelerator pedal, so it's just not as aggressive than in normal mode, but you still have that really strong surge of power in pretty much all driving scenarios, which is actually pretty nice of an experience. And that's your standard power output in this vehicle, which is cool. Now on the highway here, you can kind of hear a little bit more road noise than in round town situations. So I'm primarily hearing this from the window side of it, and some from the lower floor area and the lower door panels. The floor obviously is a battery pack, so that is kind of isolating a lot of sound there, but you can still hear some tire and some stuff noise coming in there. Not really necessarily wind noise around the upper portions of the cabin until you get into some higher highway speeds. I've noticed a little minor wind buffeting from the little mirror areas over there, but that is really about it. It's generally pretty quiet, and that's something you're going to want in an EV because you don't have no engine sound. You're not going to be hearing that, so you want to have a little more emphasis on comfort and quietness here. Now we are getting quite a few of some highway driving assistance functionalities in this XSE trim that are pretty impressive actually for this class of vehicle. So once we get out onto the highway here, I'll have a test of those for you. But we do get, pretty standard stuff like blind spot warning. We have front cross traffic warning as well. So you have a lot of safety systems here for you. And accessing your adaptive cruise is very easy, just like in all other similar products that have this interior button layout. We press our button on the right hand side and adaptive cruise mode is active. Voila, it's that easy. And you can adjust your speed adjustment right there as your distance adjustments as well. This one's also getting this driver monitor over here that you can sort of disable in the settings, and we have steering and lane centering assist. So it's technically is, you know, taking control of the driving experience, but it's not a hand-free system unless you're in the traffic jam assist functionality, which works, like, I believe, under 25 miles per hour. And then you can have, as long as you're looking forward, you kind of have this sort of traffic jam assistant feature there. But I believe that needs to have the connected services package activated to use that. So definitely keep that in mind if you want to keep this vehicle long term, and that subscription may or may not end or not there. But we also get a fun feature, which is the auto lane change assist functionality. So if I turn on my lane change here, as long as my hand's somewhat touching the steering wheel, it will do an automatic lane change assist there, which is pretty cool of a feature to have in an entry-level EV. I think that's a pretty nice touch. Is it a necessity? Absolutely not, but it's a cool gimmick to have in this vehicle for sure. Now, I do want to give you guys a quick little test of this JBL upgraded 9-speaker audio system here, because as we experienced in the Toyota Prius, which I'm very certain has a very similar JBL system to this particular one, I'm not the biggest fan of it for an upgraded system. I have not heard the base system on the CHR, but it isn't the best sounding system. The Subarus get like a Harman Kardon style system, which I know JBL, Harman Kardon, all the same company, but they do sound a little bit better actually. So have a listen to this real quick. We have a physical volume knob here as well as on our steering wheel. And what I'll have to say about it is it's generally a okay audio system. Premium, I wouldn't say it's a premium audio system. If you kind of get higher in the audio levels, it gets really washed out, and depending what songs you're listening to, I've noticed it does kind of get a little bit washed out. The bass and the mid levels are a little bit all over the place in some areas there, but it's, I guess I'm assuming it would be a little bit of a better system than the entry-level system in this Toyota CHR. But, you know, that's not really the main point of this vehicle. It's not a luxury car. It's an entry-level electric vehicle from Toyota, and it really does stand out very strongly, I think, in the looks department. Feature-wise, you're getting everything in here. You're not really missing out on stuff. It's just some of those more nitpicky things that you may like or dislike, such as not having a glove box, for example. And the general space in here is definitely on the tighter side. I've noticed in my own personal experience driving this vehicle over the course of this week. Range, I would say, is okay for this class. I would love for it to have hit that 300-mile marker with the all-wheel drive, but as I mentioned, if you want that 300-mile, you have to go for the Subaru and you have to go for the front-wheel drive. Though one good saving grace I would say about this vehicle and a lot of the Toyota EVs is they aren't outrageously expensive, and since, you know, they aren't the hottest selling vehicles in the market, a lot of them still come new with a little bit of some discounted dealerships. So I would also take that into consideration. This may end up being an overall better buy than maybe a Toyota Corolla Cross or something in that aspect. If you're looking for an EV that's smaller size, not super big, and if you do need something that's a little bit bigger, you can go straight to the Toyota BZ, which is pretty much the exact same vehicle, just stretched out a little bit more as well. So thank you guys for joining us on a drive and review of this all-new Toyota CHR for 2026, and definitely make sure to follow and subscribe for all more reviews and car news coming down the road. Cheers.